Hello and welcome to my knitting reflections, or whatever else I care to reflect on. Basically, I have had a very lovely summer holiday so far. I'm a teacher. I've been on a couple trips, and I've done quite a lot of knitting, but not a lot of reflecting. So let's change that. First things first, before the summer even started, I actually finished this first project. So I've already gotten to wear it quite a few times, and it is made out of Noro's Uchitwa or Chiwa. It's a gorgeous, I think DK or maybe even worsted weight yarn, and from it I made the Sara vest. And in fact, I really made this to wear at Pride because I don't have a lot of colorful clothing. Although today I am wearing rather colorful clothing, but usually I don't have a lot of colorful clothing, so I made this for the Pride Parade here in Vienna, and I wore it there as well. And it's extremely lightweight and breathable, even though, it has quite a thick yarn, and that's because the composition of the yarn is like cotton and silk and viscose, and it just generally feels gorgeous. And I also feel like this yarn itself fits really, really well with this pattern. So, it is just such a gorgeous color combination, and the way that they blend color together is really just magical. It was a delight to work with as well. It's really soft and lovely on the hands, and yeah, I have nothing but positive things to say about this. I still have a little bit of this left over, but because it's knit bottom up, I wasn't able to add any length to it, although I do think it's quite long enough. But yeah, I measured one of my favorite crop tops to figure out what length I wanted this to be. So I don't think I followed the pattern in that. Everything else I did follow the pattern, though. I think I might have not gone down a needle size for this, but I'd have to check my notes. So overall, really fun pattern. I believe now you have to pay for this pattern. It used to be a free pattern, but honestly, I don't know. I really do like the pattern. I do know that there's other very similar patterns that you can pay for though. So I don't know. It would be up to you whether you wanted to pay for this or not. But I do highly recommend this yarn combination because it's, I think, originally made for like a fingering with a mohair or something. But you can easily make it into a summer top using this method. So that's that. The next two projects I knit while I was in Iceland. So that was the first trip of the summer. Myself and my husband, we went to Iceland for 10 days, and it was kind of like our honeymoon trip. And yeah, so this was the first pair of socks that I made for him. I think socks are just great travel knitting, and I made this using like an amazing yarn that I got on a whim kind of while I was visiting my grandmother in Pittsburgh. And this is just a really squishy, lovely yarn. It's made by a dyer called Miss Knotty, Knotty. And when I bought it, it looked kind of almost rustic or something, but it was just because the yarn was so plump and made for a really lovely, squishy knitting experience. I think it was almost on the sport weight side of things. I would 100% buy this again. I wish I bought it in other colors. This is not really my color, but I almost tried to make a pair with the leftovers for this, but I did use quite a lot of the yarn from this. So this was just a standard toe-up sock recipe that I've used before, and I think it's called like the partridge heel. Except in the partridge heel, I'm pretty sure you do a slip knit on the right side, and on the wrong side you purl. And I do the opposite, so I do a slip, purl, and then I knit on the right side instead. But it creates a very similar looking heel, so yeah. Oh, I also do a double gusset. So you can kind of see that there's one set of increases here, and then a second set of increases here. And I really think that makes for a better fit, especially if you have kind of a wider heel. So yeah, I really enjoyed making these because the yarn was just so amazing to work with, and it was also like a really fun color changing pattern. So yeah. The other thing I made on our Iceland trip was in fact this top. And this is the Jessie May mini mock neck top. I really love this pattern. I basically made no modifications up until the armpit area. And then in the armpit, there's like some kind of ribbing when you join the sleeves. And I basically, instead of cutting off the ribbing when she suggests, I kind of made it into a V shape and then continued doing some waist decreases. And that allowed me to get a lot more length out of it than I thought I would have with the amount of yarn I had. I think I knit the size 2, and I was a little bit nervous about running out of yarn, but in the end I actually had just enough yarn, or I had more than enough yarn because I did have some extra. And for the neck, instead of doing the tubular bind off, I did the Italian bind off, and that made for a really stretchy neck, because in her notes she talks about how the bind off is a little bit tight. So I did that, and then in the waist I had done a normal bind off for the waist, but I ended up unpicking it and doing the Italian bind off because I just liked the feel of it so much better. So really recommend doing the Italian bind off on this one. The pattern is so good. It's so clear, as all her patterns are, and I feel like every time I buy a pattern, I always think to myself, like, oh, if I sat down, could I come up with this design, or could I come up with a similar looking design and just, make it for my measurements and my yarn? Because that way you don't really have to hit gauge. You can kind of get whatever gauge. But I feel like every time, especially with Jessie May's patterns, I always learn something new in the design process. And this one was definitely this lovely edging that she does in the pattern. I really enjoyed this edge because it just leaves a really nice finish. It doesn't really roll. So it's a really lovely design detail that I really liked. And I also like the shaping at the neck. But yeah, so great pattern. Really enjoyed it. That's what I knit in Iceland. And in fact, I liked this one so much that on my next trip, I immediately cast on another one. So let me show you that one. I'm almost done with that one. I'm knitting this one for a friend of mine. I bought this yarn for her to actually use it, but then I decided I was gonna instead use the yarn myself and knit her this tank top because I just love this tank top. So it obviously hasn't been blocked yet. I've gone in and I've already done the neck, which at the moment does not look very good because it's very, very, very tiny, but I'm hoping that with some blocking, it will look a little bit better. She asked for a much wider neckline because that was one thing she didn't like about this one, was that it was too short of a neckline. And also you can kind of see like the edges of my sports bra on this one. So what I did was I actually cast on for the medium, or the 3rd or maybe 4th size on the back. But then when I was picking up for these 2 shoulders, I used the 2nd size, and I knit everything down to the 2nd size eventually. So I basically increased at the armpit only until I had the amount of stitches for the 2nd size, or whatever size this was. I think it was the 2nd size. And then I also did a little bit of waist shaping here, but only a little bit. So I only did it right until under the bust and not further. So it is going to have like a bit of a looser fit, but you can already see, even without blocking and even with a ton of yarn left, there is still, this is quite a long torso already. So I'm definitely going to have enough to make this longer, because she did ask for a full length, not a cropped version. Because we kind of designed some modifications together, or talked about some modifications she would like for this. So yeah, I'm really happy with this. Hopefully I'll be able to finish this and give it to her soon. So this is the friend I went on this 2nd trip with. During the 2nd trip, I also worked on some more socks. I worked on these socks for me. I originally had intended them to be for Mickey, for my husband, but once I had cast on, I realized it was way too small. I had apparently made a wrong note in a previous sock for Mickey, and I had gotten the wrong number of stitches. So ended up being for me, and I actually cast on cuff down, and that's also why I ended up getting the wrong size, because every time I do toe up, it always works out great. But yeah, I wanted to practice doing a cuff down one again, just because I wanted to see if I liked the construction method any more than the first time I did it. And in fact, I do find this method maybe even a little bit faster than toe up with this type of heel flap. I'll show you another kind of construction that I did for my second pair of socks on this trip, where I definitely think that that one's faster if you do it toe up, or I guess maybe they're about the same, but this one I do think that heel cuff down is faster for me for some reason, mainly because you avoid all the increased rows and instead you're just picking up stitches. For some reason I feel like increased rows are a little bit slow, whereas decreased rows are fast. I don't know why I feel that way, but just it feels faster to decrease than it does to increase, even if really at the end of the day you're working the same number of stitches. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I think it's crazy that they're self-striping. I didn't realize that when I bought this yarn, but it does look pretty self-striping, at least in this size. I can't speak for whether that would carry on to other sizes. And then I need to find the other sock that I had. I used the leftovers from these socks and also from an old hat. And together I had about 30 grams, which is just enough to make a pair of socks for me usually. And so what I did was I basically knit the body of the sock, and then I did the heel and the cuff in the contrast color, and I really worked until I had no more of this one left. And in my infinite genius, I perfectly measured out the quantities so that the dark blue I have perfectly split up, the colorful like turquoise one I have perfectly split up. So I have a little pack here with exactly the quantities I'll need to make a second one of these. So hopefully my measurements all worked out, because I was kind of doing it in a hurry. So yeah, I'm really happy with the way that this one turned out. Even though it's a real short sock, I think with some blocking, it's gonna, be a lot more wearable than it may look. And also I'm giving this to the same friend I'm giving this mini mock neck to, because she has a little bit smaller feet than me. And even though this fits me okay, it fits her really well. So that plus the tank top will be headed to her soon. Other than that, those are all the things I have finished. I obviously haven't finished the sock, but I'm still working on some projects that involve Nutiden, because I've really decided that, I just love working with that yarn. I love knitting with it. I love wearing it. And I've actually acquired a couple more colorways a colorway since we last spoke. I'll talk about that in a bit. But let me show you the progress I've made. Firstly, on my nostalgic sweater coat. So I've been working on this since April. It's in two different colors that I got in different times. I've talked a little bit about how I don't love these two colors together in darkness, but in the sunlight, I think they look gorgeous together. It's a dark brown and a kind of a white with rusty undertones in it. And you can see there's even like little pieces of rust and stuff. I don't know if you can see. Anyways, so I'll put this on really fast. I finished basically the second sleeve. That was my accomplishment, but I think I'm getting to the point where I'm a little bit tired of purling. So I'm giving myself a little bit of a break from this project. It is getting pretty heavy. So this is what it looks like so far. So it's kind of at the length of a bomber jacket now. So I still have quite a lot of knitting to do to get it to the length I want. And I'm at the waist increases and shaping part. So I'll be working on that probably more in the fall, but for now it's just kind of sitting and resting. Although I do get it out to smell it every now and then because it smells divine in my opinion. But however, unfortunately, I was missing working with Nutiden. So I decided to cast on kind of spontaneously another Nutiden project with a new yarn that I acquired, plus a yarn that I showed in my last reflection video. Namely, this sweater here. Oh, one sec, it's all tangled up together. This sweater here, this is called Rug. And it's by a designer that I think has been around for a while, but she's new to me. I'll put up her name. And it is a gorgeous pattern. It has some really fun color work in the yoke that I'm working on right now. And I did a lot of modifications to this pattern, and I still plan to do maybe some more modifications because it's a one size pattern, it's a free pattern, and basically I've modified the charts a little bit. I've added ladder back jacquard because there's these long stretches of space between the color work in some sections. I have decreased the amount of stitches because it is like quite oversized, and I think it would kind of swamp me in its original form. So basically I've decreased a lot on this and changed it quite a bit, but that's also been a really fun process, you know, taking a pattern and kind of working with it a little bit. And of course I'm learning new techniques. And yeah, for one, I've learned ladder back jacquard, which is a way of basically creating a second line of knitting behind your knitting to kind of keep these long floats in place. So you can really see it here. There you can see that there's some extra purls and knits on the back to keep these darker colors in place. Another modification that I did was I added a I-cord edge in, or I guess it's a cast on, in the contrast color, just because I like to have a lot of color contrast at my face when it comes to clothing, or near my face when it comes to clothing. And I've noticed that it helps like not wash me out as much as if I just had a gray on me. So I'm really happy with that. And of course, because it's new to Den, the colors are a dream to work with. This dark black color, it's called Musla. I brought a little piece here. It's basically like a black with, let's say, brown undertones as well. It looks brown in a lot of lights, and then it also has like purple running through it a little bit. So it's a really cool thing. And it's supposed to mimic the color of like a black mussel if you like find a mussel on the beach, you know. So I love the way this looks. It looks so cool. And then the other color, while in most lights it does appear quite gray, it's actually more of an off-white with little hints of different watercolor in it. So there's green, there's pink, there's orange, there's purple. It just makes for just a gorgeous color combo. I love this combo together because it looks so different in dark light or in fluorescent lights or in, you know, just in general, like a lamp light versus in natural sunlight. Yeah, it looks so different, and it's really, really fun to knit in the sun. So I think I'll be doing that once I'm done with this video. Yeah, so that's what I've been working on. And I still have those 2 projects to finish and send to my friend. But then, you know, I have this fun project to work on. So I'm really excited about this one. I'm excited to see how it fits. Last time I tried it on when I was about here, it was on track to fit really well. So we'll see. Of course, I was also in Iceland, and a knitter in Iceland cannot resist purchasing yarn. So I think I'm going to spend the next section talking a little bit about the yarn that I had purchased and some of the places I really recommend, you know, to get yarn in Iceland, because I thought it would be a lot more straightforward than it was. So yeah, I'll do that. Okay. So I tried to find a different way of doing this, but I was not very successful. So I will be going through the yarn, not in the order I purchased them, but in the order I think of like accessibility, let's say. And so when I was in Iceland, of course, Iceland is very famous for their yarns. And of course, they're the most famous for the big yarn company called Istex, and they make lots of different types of yarn using Icelandic wool. Wool in Icelandic is called lopi, and as a result, there's a lot of different types of lopi that you can buy. So, I actually wanted originally in Reykjavik to buy yarn, but I was kind of unsuccessful in finding exactly what I was looking for. And also, despite the fact that they had a large selection, I hadn't yet been inspired by the colors of the country because I wanted to buy colors that, not just colors I liked, but colors that reminded me of Iceland. So basically, yeah, I ended up buying yarn along the way. Even though I had planned to buy more when I got back to Reykjavik, I ended up having so much yarn that I didn't want to end up buying anymore when I got back to Reykjavik. So I'm going to start off with the Istex wool I bought, and then I'm also going to talk a little bit about the other wool that I bought while I was there by different dyers or local dyers. And one in particular was by a local dyer who also had her own sheep. And honestly, to me, that was the most special wool of the trip, and maybe even some of the most special wool I've ever had owned in my entire life. So, the first Istex wool I bought were these two. I think this is Plutolopi, and they come in these plates. They have a similar quality to Nutiden in that they are unspun, but they are a little bit, well, actually, I guess they're not that much thicker, but they are not considered, I think, a lace weight, even though to me probably would be a lace weight. But I bought this color. It's a really gorgeous, like, I don't know, gray, brown, rust colored one. And then this is just almost a natural black color with a little bit hints of white in it. I learned on this trip it's really, really difficult to get a natural black because the moment a sheep gets a little bit older, they immediately start producing these white bits of fluff. So as a result, you end up this sort of marled effect. And I feel like these would make really great bases for mittens, hats, and other color work projects. So I will be using these along with my Nutiden at some point in the future. The next ones I bought at a much larger store. I think this was near the town of Vik. They had a store that sold all types of wool stuff, and there they had a really good selection of Letlopi colors. That's the only Letlopi I bought on the trip. It's these colors, and I was actually planning on making some, color work mittens or something along those lines with these ones. These would be pretty easy to use, but I actually might have a different plan for these in the future. So yeah, stay tuned for that. It could be, I'm actually thinking about making some socks with them basically. So you can kind of tell I picked these three because I really like these colors. This is a color I've actually always wanted to own. I have seen it on the Istex website. This one, it's interesting because it kind of looks like an oil slick, so it's black with these kind of blue and purple and green specks. And then this is just a gorgeous yellow color. I love yellow, so my husband was with me. He picked out this. This is one of his favorite colors of blue. So that's that. So the last yarn from Istex that I bought, I actually bought from the Alafloss factory, near the Alafloss, the former Alafloss factory, which now has become rebranded into Istex. And I bought, I really went in there looking for a purple color because you're going to see the other colors that I have purchased. The other color I felt like I was missing was this purple color, which is found in a flower called, I think, lilac. I'm not 100% sure if it is lilac, but in this flower that's basically everywhere in Iceland, all along the roads. And to me, that was a color that really reminds me of Iceland. So I picked up some different purple colors in the attempt to kind of put these together to make a purple that reminds me of that lilac. But I also bought a couple Plutolopi because I thought maybe combining this one or this one together could give me like a DK to worsted weight yarn. So I think, I'm pretty sure that these two together on their own would have been fine, but it's nice to have kind of the option of another purple. I don't really own anything purple, so I'm kind of interested to, play around with purple as a color. And then while I was there, I also on a whim bought this because the sky was often kind of a gray blue, and I feel like this color really perfectly represented that. So these two kind of represented the flowers, the sky, That darker brown kind of represented, let's say, the earth of Iceland, and then the entirety of the island is, though, very green. And that brings me to the first yarn that I actually bought while I was in Iceland. I had thought maybe I wouldn't buy any yarn, but when I saw these, I had to buy them. So you can see my nails are almost like the same color as the yarn as well. These are plant-dyed yarns, and they're using different things. This one uses lupin. Oh, I guess that's the name of the flower. So this actually uses the purple flower plus indigo, and this one uses willow plus indigo. So that flower I thought was lilac was actually called lupin. So they create these beautiful colors, and to me, these are really colors that you can see often in the countryside in Iceland. So this sort of very vibrant green and maybe like more of a yellowy green. So I'm really excited to work with these. I already have a project in mind that's going to use a few of the colors, including the purple, this one, and then some of the next ones I'm about to show you. So this next batch of wool is the last dyer / maker that we went to in Iceland, and we really kind of went crazy, and absolutely loved this shop. We found it on a whim. It was we're kind of on the road away from Dettifoss, which is a very famous waterfall in the north of the island. And we had actually planned to go a different way, but then by accident we went north to see the coast and to see some puffins, and we ended up stumbling across this incredible dyer. So she does a lot of experiments with natural dyes, but also with other dyes. And she explained to us that most of the wool that is commercially available on the island is controlled by Icelandic, by that large company. And there are very few people that own their own sheep and that don't sell them to Icelandic. And so these very small plants that are making their own yarn are actually quite uncommon. And she is one of those few people that is making her own yarn in small quantities. So of course we bought some of that, and it's very special yarn. So firstly, I'll show you some of the yarn that she uses, using the Icelandic sheep wool. So she does these beautiful blues. My husband was with me again, so he bought a lot of these. And despite the fact that it's a very rustic yarn, it's very soft. And especially this blue to me is just such a gorgeous color, and really, I can't wait to work with this. There's a lot of depth inside of this color, despite the fact that it looks like a simple blue. This one as well. I'm planning on maybe even holding this with this, because I feel like this also kind of reminds me of certain moments in the sky when we were traveling there. And then we have probably my favorite skein in terms of the colors. It is some gorgeous colors. And I'm not even going to try and pronounce the name of the dyer, but I will put it up on screen. She, is just, her stuff is amazing. I know that she doesn't really ship outside of Iceland, but if you are in Iceland, it's definitely worth a visit if you want to find some really unique yarn. So that is it for the yarn that I bought from her from the Icelandic. And these next ones, these are naturally dyed with her own sheep wool. So this one obviously is a beautiful yellow, and then she has this gorgeous green. I almost didn't buy the green because I had that other green, but it is very different, and it is a worsted weight yarn as well. And you can really see if you come up close that it has these black undertones into it, and that's because the sheep actually was gray that she dyed this on. And then the last, I have a second skein somewhere, is this gorgeous sheep wool. And this honestly is one of the most special wools I've ever owned. And it is instead of having a normal Icelandic sheep wool, this is actually from leader sheep. So this is a type of sheep that leads the pack of sheep in Iceland. And it's very, very, very soft, very silky, very rustic, but still very soft. I'm so excited to knit with this. I have a plan to make a sweater that involves all of these colors, including this one. It's going to be a completely crazy sweater, but I'm really excited. And I actually have one other yarn that I'm planning on adding into that sweater, which I'll show you next. But I didn't buy that one in Iceland. That one I bought when I was in Atlanta, which was my second trip. So we went to quite a few yarn stores together. And I did buy quite a lot of yarn because there's just some really cool options, and I always try and buy something from a local dyer. Okay, so a quick note. While I was editing this video, I realized I had forgotten to bring up two of the yarns I had bought in Atlanta. The first one was this Mojave cotton linen blend that had been recommended to me by one of the shop employees, and I'm really excited to use it for a summer knit. And the other one here is Ryan's yarn, which was locally dyed yarn, a gorgeous sock yarn. And I can't wait to knit with this color. And also it's in that theme of purple, which is kind of funny. I'm really, really happy with this yarn. This is my pride and joy. My friend gifted it to me for my birthday. My birthday is like not for many months, but my plan is to make myself a sweater with this as a base and incorporate my Icelandic wool to make sort of a crazy striped sweater with all these different colors inspired by the Icelandic color palette. So this is a really luxurious 100% llama wool. It is gorgeous. It is so silky soft. It is like a little bit scratchy if you put it like right on your chest, but otherwise it is extremely soft to the touch. And yeah, it has incredible variety of color. All of these are from the same llama. His name was Russell. I just can't. It's just so cute. So I'm really, really excited to work with these yarns and incorporate them into the sort of summer of 2023 sweater that I will wear for my birthday, hopefully. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I also already have an idea of what sweater I want to make with it. I'll put it up on screen now if I remember. It's a sweater that basically has a ton of different stripes and texture. It's a little bit crazy, but because all these are colors that I really love, with the exception of purple, colors that are often in my wardrobe, I think it's going to work out really, 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 really well. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah. Okay. That is it for my yarn acquisition. Thank you for listening to my ramble. Thanks a lot for watching. I really, enjoy doing this. I really enjoy talking about my knitting with somebody, and it always gives me some fresh insights into what I'm doing and what my next ideas are and what I want to do more of, what I want to do less of. So yeah, okay, that is all. Bye.